And then once it has been switched on, and I've got to say that 99% of the requests get switched on. I can't think of anyone where I've said no, you can't. One or two where I've been a bit unsure, and in the ones I've been a bit unsure, I've come in, and what I've done is I've got the receptionists to have this sixth sense, to think, looking at that record, is there something in there? If you can see someone who's very anxious and has been recently seen by various people, then clearly that's a grey area. There is one other exception, and that's if a patient's under secondary care mental health. If they suffer with paranoid schizophrenia and things, then clearly, or they're deluded, then that's the other one where we actually say, I'm going to ring up the consultant or the CPN that's looking after you and have a discussion with them to see whether it's in the patient's best interest to be able to see it, because they might not look at the same information and act in a different manner. And again, my experience to date, in the vast majority of cases, the psychiatrist said, no, what a great idea. My experience to date is that often their anxieties are because they haven't got a clue about what's going on, and actually by them having the access, their anxiety levels come right down. Yeah. Well, the main issues, these are things that need to be discussed with the patients. What is record access? What types of data can patients see? One of the things we've also got to remember is that there are certain things we don't see. Child protection, let's go back to that. The letters that come back from the Child Protection Committee, we don't scan them into the records. In fact, that's not strictly speaking true, because that's what we used to do. We didn't scan them on the grounds that the risks of the patient seeing it were greater than not. Recently, we've been told otherwise by our child protection officer, and there's a bit of a discussion going on, because we're now starting to say, well, maybe the benefits of having it scanned in so that everyone can see it are greater than not scanning it and then it not being accessible. It's a piece of paper hidden away in public that no one knows about. But those are some of the difficult issues where having a local care record board and having expertise in helps us to work through it, rather than, you're on your own there. What help is there for patients to understand? What supporters are available? I've mentioned third-party data because if you work in a mental health hospital, it's a really big issue. For GPs, there is some third-party data, but it's not a huge amount. Does everyone know what third-party data is, by the way? Patients are a bit confused. This is the bit where you know that your husband's been drinking a lot, and you've been saying to your husband, please don't drink, and he won't listen to you, and then you know that he's going to come and see your doctor, his doctor, tomorrow about something non-specific, back pain or something. So what you do is you ring the doctor up and say, Dr. So-and-so, my husband is coming to see you tomorrow. I know he's coming about back pain, but I just want to tell you that he's been drinking a lot. Now, the doctor who's received that information has to write in the record that they've had a conversation with the wife. But you can imagine X years down the line, when the husband decides to look at the record and sees, what's this? Wife's been snitching against me. How dare you do? And of course, what happens when actually it turns out that they've been having a ding-dong, and so actually the wife has been telling porkies to the doctor, and the doctors thought you were, alcoholic or whatever, and actually those are the issues around third-party data. At the moment, Data Protection Act says it's in the best interest of the patient not to be able to see that third-party data. That's what we are programmed to do. That's what we have to do. We get into serious trouble if we don't. We get into serious trouble if we don't. And it's the whole issue of, well, what do we do once that's in the record? The guidance that we've produced, the Record Access Collaborative, gives various options. One of which is to say, we're not going to let you see the data from the past, but we are going to start letting you see data from a certain date onwards. And that date might be from a date when all the staff have been trained to look for third-party data and things. That's an issue about trust there, because how do you feel about not being able to see the past data, but not being able to see forward data? In our practice, we've just turned around and said you can see it all, and there's a possibility you might be able to see third-party data, but what do you expect me to do about it? Because if I turn around and say you can't see it because there might be third-party data in there, then you're missing the opportunity of what record access does. But on the other hand, by me giving you access, there's a small possibility there might be third-party data in there that you can have a look at. In the questionnaire that I send out to you, in the email that I send out to you, you'll see how I've approached the whole issue about third-party data. I've gone to the National Information Governance Board down in London. I've been to many different conferences around the country and even around the world to say this is how I'm approaching it. I'm not saying it's right, but it's where I am. Back to the 700 patients, 3 years, and not a single problem. Children access talks about mental health problems of access. What What are the challenges I'm facing? Well, people generally now know about it. We've had posters everywhere. Patients have come to me about the 10th time. They'll say, "Yes, doc, I know about record access." They do know about it, but they don't necessarily know why they need it. The culture's not there. They say, "Well, that's fine. If I have a problem, I'll just call 999 and the doctors in A&E will fix me." So they're not quite yet. They're not. Or the other one is they all think, "Well, they can see it anyway. My doctor's got a computer record. They can see it." So it's possible that you could say, well, 80% of the patients could do it, but actually, not everybody who expresses the desire to have record access gets it. So they might turn around and say, "I want the access," and they send an email or a text message, but they don't actually get to do it. And it's one of those things where you continue to have to try and persevere, and it might be the 5th or 6th time before they finally get it. That's the big one that everybody asks. Where's the money to support this? I want money to be able to do it. Of course, in a cash-constrained system, and the NHS doesn't have a lot of it, it's quite a difficult one. So we're always looking at other opportunities other than money, but that's the big one. That is a challenge for me, is how can I unlock money to enable that to happen. Supporting and embedding a local care record board, which I mentioned. Updating the website. I'm updating on a daily basis with new information. The swine flu stuff particularly. It's important because if it's old information, people will stop looking at it. How critical is the practice website? I think it's very critical because it allows patients to learn in their own time, but ultimately you as a practice will determine whether you need it or you don't. The other 39 practices don't have a practice website. They've simply switched it on and just allow people to do it themselves. Transferring the knowledge gained for others to benefit. What this is about is, at the moment, we've switched this technology on, it works. What I'm now doing is trying to explain to patients and the public how access to records actually could help them. And I'm making little stories up and videos up. In fact, this recording of this video could become another video on the practice website for other people to look at. And also not just things like the access to records, but the map of medicine. How does map of medicine help the person, and how does things like health space help the patients to get the best out of the access? Patients teaching other patients, that's a real big challenge, because that's actually brilliant. The best people to teach patients are actually other patients. So once you've figured out how it works for you, if you then start telling other patients how to do it, and if this practice or PCT in some way supports that, that will enable some of the culture change that's necessary. At the moment, the challenge I've set for myself is to try and now get 10 patients to come into the practice with their map of medicine for the end of the year. So before the end of the year, I'd like to get 10 patients coming in saying, "Doc, this is my map of medicine, I think this is where I am, can we talk about it?" Not got one yet, so still trying. We've started discussion with the deans of the medical schools to get health informatics into the curriculum, because what you're seeing is that this is healthcare for the future, it's here now, but it doesn't just come naturally. We're going to have to teach some of this stuff. So getting into discussion around that. How do I support you? It's the first time I've come to a practice to say, this is what I'm doing, have I done it right, haven't I? I'm quite interested actually in knowing how you might be able to support me in what I'm trying to do, and we work in an interdependent world where it's not me that tells you how to do it, not necessarily you telling me, but let's work together in some shape or form. And I'm going to finish with a final slide. This came from 2007. Patients of mine put on a blog. I'm 30-something mum, looking after a small child, a part-time job, a husband, a house, the list goes on and on. I also have diabetes, an underactive thyroid gland, fertility problems, suffer with depression, asthma, and recently started medication to protect my kidneys, ! I don't have time to be ill. In 2007, I was introduced to my electronic medical record access. I now order my prescriptions, book my appointments to see the doctor, check my test results, and sometimes I even go over the conversation I had in my consultation with the doctor when I feel I need to clarify issues to understand my medical needs better. I feel I am taking a positive step towards maintaining a healthy life, understanding my medical needs, and doing it all on my time when it's convenient for me. I shop online, I communicate online, I educate myself online, I control my finances online. In 2007, it's only right that I should look after myself online. So finally, we went over, did you know, we talked about the partnership of trust and the paradigm shift in healthcare, touched on real-time digital medicine, I gave a demonstration of the practice website and patient view of records, some of the background around record access, the very critical role I think that clinicians, patients and the public, practice staff, Records Access Collaborative and perhaps the website has. Describe how patients get access. Thank you very much.
Thank you.